I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore!
You're listening to the RMPodcast, the official podcast of Red Moon Productions. Here are your hosts, Brandon Davidson,
Keith Cheatham, and Sean Sebastian.
Enjoy.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Red Moon Podcast. I am One of your hosts, Brandon Davidson, alongside our normal new host,
Sean Sebastian.
and
Keith Cheatham.
yeah, I got the hiccups, guys.
He's got the hiccups.
I can't help it. I think I know why. I think I know why. It's because it's on a different night tonight.
Yeah.
My body's not used to this.
Monday night hiccups.
We need a scary.
Ugh.
If I pull up another picture of Glenn Close, like back from like from like
No, that didn't work last time.
the carrot picture from like way back when.
I know, that didn't work.
Yeah.
I remember it. And that's the weird thing is we wasted that.
Basic Instinct. Or no.
No.
Fatal Attraction.
Fatal Attraction.
Oh, yeah.
But we wasted that.
Dang.
We ended up wasting the carrot when we didn't have video. We
well,
have video.
Well, I
Oh,
can pull it up.
gosh.
I can pull it up now.
I'm not going to get through this show without the hiccups.
No.
Keith's
I'm
gonna pull-
looking up Glenn Close, that Glenn Close picture, so people can finally see.
Don't show it to me.
5
See,
years-
Sean's not ready
Can't
for this
quit
either.
yawning.
That way, 5 years later, someone can finally see the picture I was talking about.
This was on one of our early
It was the
shows.
first.
It was one of.
Man, it's not
Oh,
even.
gosh.
Even the quality of the picture is garbage. Look at that.
Oh,
Can you see?
Oh man,
oh my
Glenn
God!
Close.
I thought it was one carrot, but
No, she shoved like
No.
a whole bag of baby carrots
Are you
in
sure
there.
that's not photoshopped?
No, it's not. She did it on a.
Oh, yeah.
she
Jimmy
did it
Fallon.
on Jimmy Fallon.
oh
yeah.
my gosh!
Yeah, there you go.
There
That's
it
Are they
is.
her
carrots
before.
or cheese puffs?
They're carrots.
Oh.
They're baby carrots.
Yeah, if there were cheese
That's
puffs, I'd
crazy.
totally do that.
Oh.
That's what she looks like 5 days a week.
The sad thing is, Sean, you asked if it was photoshopped. I'd hate to
No,
see
it's just what Glenn Close
I'd
looks
hate
like.
to see the before picture of why her mouth was open that
Yeah.
that wide if it wasn't photoshopped.
Jeez.
Yeah, we're here, guys. That's right. Monday night. It's a little. Oh gosh,
Different.
I'll get through these hopefully through this show. I don't know, but it's a little different. We're here, obviously, just because there's a special occasion tomorrow.
Oh,
What is it?
So we had to knock it back.
I know somebody got
A
married
night.
or something.
Something like
and
that.
They want to celebrate their anniversary. I mean,
Jeez.
Give it a shout out.
Yeah, it was like 13 years ago.
that's amazing.
13 years, yeah.
Yeah.
So my anniversary's tomorrow. I love doing the podcast more than my wife. So we moved the podcast so that I could still do it tonight and then also take her out to dinner
See,
tomorrow.
but you can't say that you love the podcast more than
No,
your wife.
I
I mean,
don't.
you.
That's not
I mean,
true.
well, you.
I love her
changed the
enough to
night.
change the night.
Exactly.
But I wasn't going to miss the podcast.
Well, no, we always
Yeah.
make.
There's
you know,
We can make adjustments.
yeah, and we do.
That's right.
That's what we do here best on the show.
So, yes, 13 years, me and my lovely wife. It's been an amazing ride. Got 2 kids. Love every minute of it. And hopefully I can make it through 13 more.
And then you know what it'll be? 26 years.
26
Just saying.
Oh,
just
God.
saying. 26 years of film that nobody will ever see.
But if
Totally.
somebody wanted to see it, can they not on? Oh, do
No,
you not have that
not
one
yet.
on there yet?
Well, because there was a lot of copyrighted music that was used.
Yeah. If you want
Yeah.
to see most of Red Moon's other work, you could visit the website.
That's
True.
right. Where'd that?
But you can't watch 26 years on the website. What website?
No.
RM.
No.
No.
That's our email.
That's the email. RedMoonProductions.com.
There you go.
There it is.
Sorry.
It's
There
very
we go.
simple.
I've been trained for that RM podcast at RedMoonProductions.com or the email, but the
We'll do
website-
that later.
The website's just RedMoonProductions.com.
That's
Yeah.
right. Email's always last because nobody emails anymore.
Yep.
They stopped emailing us a long
You
time
said
ago.
you said you've enjoyed the 13 years you spent going like, but you know what? Like,
Yes.
I mean, it's. I'm sure there's been ups and downs, but for the
Oh,
most
yeah.
part, like those 13 years have been good. You've enjoyed going through. You know what? I did not enjoy going through though.
What was it?
This film.
It's
I
a
did
great
not
segue.
enjoy-
I
I'm just
knew it
saying.
was
It's great.
coming.
It
I
was
just-
coming that way.
I just
yeah.
didn't enjoy. Okay, to be fair, it wasn't the worst, but we can hear the review of Mutiny on the Bounty.
Let's go to it.
In the annals of film history, each recipient of the Academy Award for Best Picture should be the pinnacle of filmmaking for the year each film won. We know this isn't always the case. Some years there is no clear winner, with multiple films deserving the accolade. Other years, for whatever whim has currently compelled the Academy, films that are completely undeserving win. Sometimes, only time can tell if a film was truly the best picture. And in this week's review of 1935's Mutiny on the Bounty, a film considered a timeless classic, I believe time has not been an ally. Directed by Frank Lloyd, who had directed the Best Picture-winning film Cavalcade, Mutiny on the Bounty is at least leaps and bounds better and much more deserving of Best Picture than Cavalcade. Though not all of Lloyd's shortcomings are gone from Mutiny. Starring Clark Gable as Fletcher Christian, lieutenant on the British ship the HMS Bounty, the Bounty has been tasked with sailing to Tahiti to procure fruit trees to supply food for slaves in the West Indies. Under the ship's command is Captain William Bligh, played by Charles Lofton, a cruel and harsh man who during the course of the film frequently abuses his power and often unjustly punishes his men, leading to several deaths. The story of the mutiny on the Bounty is one of the most famous naval mutinies in history, though don't go looking for too much fact in the 1935 film. While it's not rare for filmmakers to embellish detail in movies based on true events, it was very common for early Hollywood films to be a little less than genuine with the truth. Mutiny on the Bounty should not be taken as an historic account by any means, taking vast liberties with the characters and how events played out. While it may not be credible from a historic aspect, the film should still be redeemable as a work of fiction and entertainment. And at the time of its release, and to many still, it is and was. With values and morals that are timeless, Mutiny on the Bounty does have an interesting story to tell, but it takes an awful long time to tell it. The pacing is painfully slow in the front half, but does pick up and become something much more entertaining to watch. While we do need the exposition and the setup the beginning provides, showcasing Bligh's cruelty and the mistreatment of the crew, in order to build to and justify the mutiny, there isn't enough substance in the writing or acting to hold your attention the entire time. Clark Gable gives a great performance as Fletcher Christian and is easily the standout in the film, becoming the figurehead the crew turn to when Bligh rains down his anger. Lofton as Bligh is a mixed bag. Lofton, a terrific character actor for his time, and one who had won an Academy Award of his own by this point, is compelling to watch when he really gets into a groove. Other times, however, he is almost cartoonish. The same can be said of many supporting cast members, as much of the acting still comes across as if being performed on stage instead of on film. Much of the overtop treatment of the crew can also cross the line of believability, with Bligh committing acts on film that no serious captain would do even if corrupt. While Mutiny definitely takes advantage of its set pieces and does accomplish gorgeous feats in filming and cinematography, sometimes even that gets a bit carried away. Perhaps Lloyd was just fond of scenes that could induce migraines and seizures, having a similar issue in Cavalcade with too much going on. There is one such scene in particular in Mutiny on the Bounty, showcasing the crew preparing to set sail. With such hectic cuts and cinematography, I thought I myself might get seasick. All in all, Mutiny on the Bounty is not a bad film, but as time has marched on, it just doesn't feel like the timeless classic critics praised it to be. It was fine for its time and is still a good watch, but doesn't offer anything up to set itself apart from any other film from 1935. And while many may not agree with me, not only is the film not timeless, it also is not an untouchable film like Best Picture should be, having been remade more than once with at least one remake outshining it. So while I like Mutiny on the Bounty for what it is, I can say it definitely doesn't feel like a Best Picture winner to me. I give Mutiny on the Bounty 2.5 out of 4 stars. Well, there you have it. 2.5 for the 8th Best Picture winner.
That's right. We were on such a good streak for a while. I mean, we had last week.
It's almost like it's almost like every other one. It's so weird.
Yeah,
it is weird.
This is another one that we all kind of agree on again. Yeah. So
yeah, I've still got the hiccups too. I can't get rid of it.
Yeah,
it's gonna happen.
Here's my thing. Especially because Frank Lloyd directed this film. He's also the man who made Cavalcade, which won not the previous film, but the one before. Mm-hmm. And Cavalcade was terrible. This is better than Cavalcade.
No, it is.
But it still has so many issues.
You can actually follow the plot.
Yeah, you can follow the plot.
Yeah.
It isn't all over the place, but like I mentioned in my review, it still has like some like directorial choices that I just felt like too much is going on, that you just get a massive headache rather than just like Cavalcade with the scene of the opera and the war like all happening at once.
A cacophony of confusion.
Yes, the same thing, only visually this time, where they kept cutting from like person to ship rocking to sails opening to all this just fast cuts to all this hectic action, and I was just sitting here like, man, I'm getting a migraine trying to watch this thing. And like the acting, some of it was too over the top, some of it was
the only thing that I'm going to give a little pass on the acting with is the fact that, I mean, we're still in the 1930s.
It's still early, but after, like, we just watched, like,
it
happened one night, had way better acting.
It's weird. It's like it's like Grand Hotel and It Happened One Night, because they're set more in reality, and
Yeah.
they're focused on real life people. And I don't know. It just seems like they're not.
And it was a modern setting, whereas this was a
I mean,
period
and
piece.
we all know the trivia of back in the day when during the early days of Hollywood they were trying to do they called it a transatlantic, accent.
Yeah.
I can't get it
I
out.
was like, what? A trans what?
A trans what?
Gosh.
But the thing is, they tried to use this accent to try to show kind of a more highbrow version of what Hollywood is mixed with British culture.
Yeah.
And it was like the blending of the two. And so I think when you saw movies like Grand Hotel and It Happened One Night, you don't have that because you see movies that are very much based in reality. Whereas these movies, I think we're still trying to stick with that
It's almost like they
you know,
just still
atmosphere.
like
The acting just
it's still staged theatrics almost.
Yes.
It's like It Happened One Night finally started moving away from a theatrical style of acting to a more realistic style of acting, but this one hadn't moved past that yet. It's still incorporated. I mean, Clark Gable is decent. Like he's past the theatrical acting into more realism.
True.
But the rest of the actors still had that we have to be like very pronounced and very over the top to get the point across. And it's like you don't on film.
Yeah,
Like,
it's not just their facial expressions; it's their body language.
Yes.
Like it's like way over the top. But I just still, we've had, what was the, Wings was the first one. What year was that? 1929.
29.
I'm just like, they've been doing this for almost a decade.
Yeah.
And it's like, come on. By now, you've had time to transition from the theater to
Yeah.
But
the movie theater.
Film,
True.
yeah.
From film, and I'm just like, that's one of the things that I can't give them that excuse.
But I think we're going to have that for the next. Honestly, even I got to be honest with you. I've seen Gone with the Wind before. I know
it
that's
has
coming
some
up.
instances.
It has the same thing. I think that's the flavor, and I don't think you really get out of every movie not having I think every movie's going to be sprinkled with that to a degree.
But I think if you
and
set-
it's not until I think the 50s or 60s
Yeah.
that you really start to get out of that. And
But I was
even then
gonna
you
say-
have musicals, you have
Yeah.
Singing in the Rain and all these other movies.
But that was what the point I was about to
and
make.
it's not to give it a pass. I just think it's not something I'm ticking
Yeah.
off of like right now for these earlier films because I expect it to be in almost every movie I watch.
If you set the tone, because that's the thing, like Grand Hotel, if you set the tone of the movie to kind of expect that, I'm okay with it because it's like, okay, that's kind of what they're going for with the movie. But then if you give me a movie that's supposed to be a little bit more realism and still have that, that's when I'm like, no, I'm not going to give you a pass because if you've already set up the tone to be one way, but then you still have these over-the-top actors, it's like you're breaking the tone.
Fair enough.
Yeah, but
so
that's-
it's like musicals and stuff like that. Some of that early stuff is like I can accept it with that because they kind of set the whole movie to be that way.
Yeah, but that's one of the things that we talked about when we were doing our Great Day Live segment is that it's supposed to be a film based on actual events, yet you're talking about the realism and how the acting fits with the realness of the film. This film was not accurate.
It was not accurate.
Yeah,
no.
so there's so much there that's just not true to life that it when that over the top acting is happening, it doesn't add to it at all, and it's kind of like I would say that's not really what ticked off the stars for me. It was just the
boring.
It was boring.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
There was so much that this film's been done 3 or 4 times over.
Yeah.
And
Which I'm glad that you all have seen the other
Yeah,
versions.
yeah.
I have not.
and we've mentioned
Yeah.
that the other 2 versions are better. Now I haven't seen all of the Marlon Brando.
I
one,
haven't either,
but
to
I
be
have
honest
seen
with you.
bits and pieces of it. But the Mutiny with Mel Gibson
And
and
Anthony
Anthony Hopkins and Liam Neeson, like that's a fantastic film.
Mhm. It
And it would be one that if it was gonna be Oscar worthy, it should have won, not this one.
Yeah.
And I know that it's usually the remakes are worse, but that one got it much more historically accurate and
Well,
it got the pacing right, and it got the
I want to bring that up because that was a point that Keith actually made in
In
I
the
think you made it
review.
in the review where you were talking about this is not. It's very clear that when you watch this now, granted, again, to take yourself and put yourself back then. I do see scenes like in Cavalcade or not Cavalcade, Cimarron, where they're doing the land rush, and to me that was something that even much like the flying scenes in Wings that are still for that period, but even now are kind of impressive just based on
from a technical standpoint.
from a technical
yeah.
standpoint. But you're right, seeing those ships, it's like other than some of the moments where they're on the ships in the storm, most of it is not something that's timeless. And you brought it up in the review how there's a lot of this film that seems like this could easily be remade.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's really disconcerting when you're talking about a film
Best
that's
Picture.
supposed to be be
Yeah,
best picture.
that was a point I wanted to mention. Is not even just like the timelessness, but most like the really solid Best Picture winners. Like, okay, look at Ben-Hur. That was an untouchable film. They
Yes.
tried to remake it, failed abysmally.
Yeah.
And the thing is,
Really
the
bad.
only real thing you can do to Ben-Hur is update the technology, like
yeah,
the special
CGI.
effects. But everything else outside of the special effects, which were limited in the 50s, is solid. The acting, the writing. It's like there's not much you can do to improve upon that film outside of the special
Well,
effects.
and even real quick, just to, and I'm not to cut you off, but we
No,
even
yeah.
talked about this a little bit earlier about how there's sometimes, especially within the last 20 years, where CGI can be a hindrance,
Yes.
and a crutch to a film to the extent that it actually doesn't hold up nearly as well as practical effects.
Right.
And I'm sorry, but when you have Q-tips that are being pushed up and down in the audience of Ben-Hur that
Yeah.
make it look like a real
Real
audience,
people, yeah.
that's an amazing feat that accomplished not only well, but still holds up today.
When I watch the original Ben-Hur with Charlton Heston, there is not much about that movie that I can point at.
Say his name. and I'm
Charlton
like,
Heston's man
I get the shivers. Hey, Charlton Heston.
Charlton
was
Heston's
a
sexy.
man.
Yeah, he's gay. He's gay for Charlton Heston.
But
It's the
Yeah.
only guy I would go gay for.
but there's but when
He's
you
dead,
when you
so
look at
I
so
guess
many,
I'm never going there.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No,
Chris,
you're fine.
Chris Pratt's a close second.
I agree. I said I 100% agree with you on Charlton Heston. He was amazing man. But when you look at Best Picture winners, and it's like, and there's a few exceptions. Like I could see All Quiet being remade better,
Yeah.
not because it's not timeless, but because it was so early and the technology was so limited. You really could do something new and interesting.
It
with
could
that.
be just as
But-
which I think we kind of see in
Yeah.
things like Saving Private
But
Ryan.
that's
Yeah,
kind of like
1917.
that's like an exception to the rule, as opposed to so many other films that it's like Forrest Gump. You can't remake Forrest Gump would be completely pointless. What are you
Yes.
going to do with that movie that's any better than what you already have?
Right.
And to me, that's where Mutiny on the Bounty really fails. Is that I can watch this movie and be like, anybody could. They did make it better. The Anthony Hopkins Mel
Yeah.
Gibson version is better. So
Agreed. I mean, I don't know about those movies, but I agree in the sense that after watching this film, I very quickly, in fact, it was your review that I was sitting at about 3 stars
Yeah.
because I was entertained.
it's not
There
bad.
there were definitely story beats in this one that were far better than Cavalcade or Cimarron. It told a much more epic scope of a story with regards to just focusing on the two people who I thought were kind of the two main characters. Well, I don't want to say two main, a cluster of characters that it really focused on, and you knew from beginning to end. That was the one thing, was you followed them from beginning to end. The camera doesn't just cut away and you don't pick up with them until years down the road, like in Cimarron. And so for me, I do think this was a much more entertaining film in that regard.
yeah.
It kept my attention. But about halfway through the film, after the main plots had kind of, even after a few of the little twists they throw in there, like I said, there's a mutiny, but you don't know how it's really coming,
Or why,
or when,
Yep.
and who's going to be the one in charge of it. So it's kind of like, it's one of those situations where I was entertained throughout most of the film, but towards, I would say, the last 45 minutes of the film,
you just wanted it to be over.
yeah, the pacing just slowed so far down, I don't think it slowed down. It stayed the same as the rest of the film, but by that time I was already just like, guys, I'm done with this. Like,
Yeah.
let's be done.
You
with
even
this story.
mentioned it's like they could have just ended it there.
Yeah.
Yes,
At the 2-hour mark.
They didn't have
could
to
just
keep
ended it.
going. And like just like the version we keep mentioning with Mel Gibson, with that, it's like, yes, you still have to have the same level of exhibition leading up to the mutiny.
Right.
You have to understand why there is a mutiny. But with better writing and better acting, it's more compelling to watch. So those slower moments you get sucked into. With this, because there wasn't really enough really drawing me in to keep my attention up until the
Yes.
mutiny, I was just like, okay, I'm just kind of ready for them to revolt now.
That's
Yeah.
well, and ultimately that's also another knock against just these earlier films in general, which I don't think we get. I do think it is Gone with the Wind and the turning of the tide, because I just think with film technology, I mean, as much as you even try, to restore some of these films, just the camera work and the audio is so poor that sometimes even those intimate, like more, very
Quiet
touching,
moments,
quiet moments, they don't come across real well.
Yeah.
And it's because you're straining to try to understand it or hear it, or maybe
But
even the dialogue
They
is just
can.
not as
I
fluid.
mean, it happened one night. Had
True.
some good moments.
Yeah, it
exactly,
is, yeah.
exactly. And but again, I agree with you.
Some of it is the technology and how old it is, but some of it's also, I think, the director. I mean,
Yeah.
because of what
No,
the
yeah.
director chooses to do affects the movie.
Right. I mean, there's this it's not a subtle scene. I mean, it's pretty impactful and loud and boisterous, but at the near the beginning of All Quiet, when the school teacher is
Oh, yeah.
talking to the young men and riling them up to get them to go off to war.
Yeah.
For the fatherland and
Yeah.
all of that. It was like, you talk about the camera work and
Yes.
the audio being poor. There's a static shot, a couple of changes from from shot to shot, but the audio is like, it's so loud when he's yelling that you can hear it crackle in the speakers. Like it's very poor quality, but yet that scene is
Still
like
effective.
that's one of the best scenes in the whole movie.
Agreed.
Yeah.
It's
No, agreed.
yeah. I just feel like done right, it can be this major.
If there's one thing I love about being on the Red Moon podcast, it's really just being corrected. And,
Well, I'm not trying to correct you. I'm just saying.
I'm saying I agree with both of y'all, and really my reasonings don't make any sense. This movie sucked.
It did.
My thing is, I can look past the technical faults because
Sometimes.
at the time I understand it's like, well, they couldn't do any better
Yeah.
than that. That's all
Yeah.
they were limited
Yeah.
to. But when it comes to certain like things as
I
far
guess,
as like
yeah.
the direction and how they do
Yeah.
it, it's like, well, that's
Well,
human
like
error.
for instance, like what you kind of brought up and talked about with the being on the sea making you sick. I agree. It's just one of those things where it's just like, I mean, I understand that was maybe the best they could do at the time, but yet there's still, it's like that's the whole part of
He didn't
being
have
a
to
great
do-
director.
yeah, constant quick cuts like
Yes,
that.
and it's nauseating for a reason, and part of that reason is it's not just the best they could do. We've seen war scenes, we've seen chaotic
Just think
scenes
Frank
play out a
Lloyd
lot
likes,
smoother.
He likes
Yeah.
to give people migraines and seizures. We've seen
true.
Cavalcade and Mutiny. He did it both. So
That's true. And he thought he was. I mean, I honestly think he's like Baz Luhrmann. He thinks the
Well,
chaotic
you
nature
give him
is.
2 Oscars, of course he's going to think.
I
it.
would say, I mean, he's one of the more critically praised directors of the time, and
But-
so
right,
far I haven't
right.
been that impressed with Frank Lloyd.
Agreed. I mean, maybe. I don't know. Yeah, I think with the string of movies we've seen,
He's the lesser of the two Franks.
yeah.
Frank Capra was
Can't
way
wait
better.
for Capra to come back up. I think he's got another one.
He
I
does
think-
have
Is
another
that our
one.
next one or
no,
2 more?
No, our next one I think
forgetting
is
which one.
as Emile Zola.
Yeah. Why don't we've been forgetting to do this on the show each
Yeah,
week.
we need to talk
We
about
need to
the
keep
next film.
telling. I mean, yeah, easy to look up on Wikipedia and find like all the best picture winners, but
Oh no, Emile Zola is the one after this. So the next one is the Great Ziegfeld or
the great
Ziegfeld.
Ziegfeld.
Ziegfeld or Ziegfeld, I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But we'll figure. Maybe it'll
Yeah.
be great. What's the Rotten Tomato score on that? Let's spoil ourselves.
Well, let's spoil ourselves. Let me pull
Let's
it up.
figure
real
out if,
quick.
if we think it's going to be worthwhile.
Well, I mean, the Rotten Tomato score for Mutiny on the Bounty was like 93, and I disagree with that completely. So,
yeah, agreed.
Oh, I mean, wow, Frank Capra went on to do It's a Wonderful Life.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. Oh, yeah.
God, yeah.
Frank Capra he has Arsenic and Old Lace. It's a Wonderful Life. Mr. Deeds comes to town. Mr. Smith goes to Washington. Both of those are great.
Those are fantastic.
I love Mr. Smith Goes to Washington.
I remember watching that actually. The first time I saw it was in the Palace here when they had a
And
a
then I
film
think
night.
his
It's
next
fantastic.
Academy Award winning one was It Could Happen to You. I think that's the next one Frank Capra did that was nominated. You
It
could
could
look at-
happen to you.
Yeah, I think that
I'm
was
thinking
it.
of Nicolas Cage.
Yeah,
and,
that's kind of what I
you
was
know,
thinking.
winning the lottery. It's a great movie.
Yeah.
But so the great Ziegfeld, whatever. I don't know. That's our next film that we're watching in the Oscar series. I'm making fun of it right now, but who knows? It could end up
could
being
be
a
really good.
fanta-
I mean,
what-
I
did you
don't-
find the Rotten Tomato score?
It has a 66% of Rotten Tomatoes.
Mm.
But
Like
I said, Mutiny on the Bounty 93.
The only one we've agreed with so far on the Rotten Tomato score, I think, has been It Happened One Night.
Yeah, I think that's
that
the
one
only
had
one.
upper 90s.
Well, I mean, All
and-
Quiet was high.
yeah,
and we gave
we
it
agreed with
decent
that
score,
one too.
So,
True.
but yeah, I mean, we'll see and let everyone know next week.
Yeah, we'll find out. You'll tune in next week on our normal night. We're going back to our normal night next week, Tuesday night, 9 o'clock. Thank everybody out there for joining us tonight on Monday night, a special night. But let's dive right into, are we ready for our headline speak?
Yes.
Are you all ready?
Okay, I want to make a correction. It's not It Could Happen to You. It was You Can't Take It With You.
You can't take
And
it
I was going to
with
say,
you.
It Could Happen to You
Yeah.
was definitely the Nicolas Cage
Yeah,
movie.
You
Yeah.
Can't
Be
Take It
doing
With
that.
You. And that comes after we have Great Ziegfeld, The Life of Emile Zola, and then Frank Capra comes back with You Can't Take It With You.
And then, of course, we have Gone with the Wind.
oh, yes.
That's-
Rond with the wind.
Ron
Ron
with the wind.
it's
Ron.
Ron with the wind. There's a guy named Ron, and he
Ron.
is with the wind. Okay?
Okay.
All right. All right, let's move on to our headlines. Are you all ready?
Yes.
It has been said
Has it?
after last week we were worried because Tenet was going to get delayed
Yeah.
if 80% of theaters did not open. That was what the cutoff was for the studio to release that film.
Yes.
But it seems now that 90% of the theaters will be open by mid-July.
Good.
I hope so.
So are our high hopes still there for Tenet to be released in July?
I really hope so. I am itching to get back into a movie theater.
I am too.
And for Tenet to be one of the first ones I could go see, that would be so great.
Whew, that would be a way to welcome back.
Unfortunately, it's going to be a Russell Crowe film, though.
I know. It's going to be the
gonna
first one. I'll go see that too. I'll go
I
see
will
anything
too.
at this point.
Yeah.
I miss being in the
anything
theater.
yeah.
It could
I
be a
agree.
jumping turd on the screen, and
That's
I'll
right.
go watch it.
Well, yeah.
But here's the thing. I mean, 90% of like they almost have to at this point. It's like when people are worried, will that many be open? But at this point,
Yeah.
if they don't open, they're all going to go under. So
Well, and okay, that being the next thing.
Mhm.
So, I mean, we're sitting here talking about it being Tenet, hopefully coming out, and not being delayed. Same with Mulan. It's potentially being.
I mean, I care more about Tenet, but I am interested in Mulan too.
But both are coming out. So Tenet would be. It's looking like mid-July is the key point because
Yes.
that's when Tenet was supposed to originally release anyway.
Mhm.
So they're looking to bring it out then. Mulan, of course, the very next weekend. And my question is if 90% of theaters are open, for one, yeah, that's a good sign. But do you think that that's the right time? And do you think that's going to be enough theaters to kind of start drumming up business and to get not only butts back in the seat, but bring the revenue back around and actually start generating some income
honestly,
for these
at
theaters?
this point, I mean, I think theaters could just go ahead and open.
Yeah.
So I think, Mid-July is a fine
I mean, they're
time.
allowed to.
Yeah, they're allowed
Yeah.
to. They
I
have.
mean, it's just the major chains that haven't.
The problem is, major chains haven't, and there's not really movies ready to go. So I think, mid-July gives them time to get ready and to start getting the movies in to show. And I'm happy with that. I mean, I say, don't delay it. Go ahead, open mid-July. Take whatever precautions you need to, because I understand some precautions still are needed. But there's being cautious and there's being too cautious. So,
Agreed.
I'm ready for
Cautious
it
to the point of like losing your business.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, but here's the thing, and I mean, a lot of people bring this up. It's like, okay, so you open doors, but nobody comes back because everybody is being too cautious.
And
Here's
that's
the thing.
fair.
My,
And then
my
what-
thing with
what does
that
that do?
is, I see people every day going in and out of stores, going in and out of banks, getting their hair cut now. The haircut, I tried
Getting
to go
their
get my
nails
son's
did.
haircut, and we had to wait 2 hours to get our haircut.
Mhm.
We had to go away, and they called us when we were ready.
Same here.
So
Had to
it's
sit out in
just
the
like
parking lot.
people are wanting to get back, and
Yes.
people are willing to go back. There hasn't been a day that Walmart hasn't been crowded. So I still think that if they opened today, people would show
Well,
up.
and oddly enough, not to get on a political rant, but having seen the protests over the last 2 weeks in every major city,
Yeah.
I don't think
Social
too many
distancing
people
ain't a
are
thing anymore.
worried about social
Not
distancing.
very many people are
Yeah.
worried, and there has not been like people are like with all the protests and such. You would think like, oh, that would cause a major uptick, but
hasn't
there has
been.
not been an
And there
uptick
hasn't.
in COVID.
Well,
no.
and that is also kind of what I have been thinking in terms of like just thinking about this rolling it back and figuring out, okay, yeah, we took all this precaution, but now we've seen, literally there was supposed to be this slow rollout. The protest happened right at the beginning of the rollout. So now granted, most
why are we
things
still
were
doing
open.
a slow rollout when people are congregating in mass now
yeah,
anyway?
yeah, that's kind of my thinking, and especially they've even come out and said that they have like here locally in Louisville, they have actual places where the people who are protesting can go and get like you can go to a tent and get a swab and get tested for COVID. I haven't heard any of specific reports on how many people are doing that. So I really don't think, obviously, if you're out protesting, the first thing on your mind has been social distancing from the protest.
Yeah.
Granted, everybody I've seen mostly on
A
TV
lot of people
has
have
been wearing the
masks,
masks.
yeah.
And so it's like
That's
I don't.
to hide their identity. That's not. That's not to keep them from getting COVID.
Well, I just don't think that's going away anytime soon.
Yeah.
No.
Anyway.
But I mean, if you take the precautions, and if people are wearing masks to protest, there's going to be people that'll wear masks in the theater,
Right.
And it's like I think as long as the proper precautions are taken, it's going to be fine. I don't think there's going to be a major theaters are open and now we have thousands of cases of COVID. That's not going to happen.
No.
Yeah, I agree. And I honestly, I'm kind of happy to see this number. And I think it's just because, I mean, one thing that it's kind of leading into our next topic, and that is the fact that AMC has been touting for a while now that they are scared, that they have been scared because of ever since closing down in February, they did not have enough operating income to kind of stay afloat. They've received some, angel donations to keep them afloat, and now it's like their stock rose today ridiculously high all of a sudden to kind of put them back a 9% rise. So it's like, one article we read, Sean, you actually read it and was talking about the strategy that AMC might be.
It's an opinion piece, but it was just basically saying that this happens all the time. Companies see a downfall and they think that they're going to go out, so they kind of do some doom and gloom talk that gets people's attention, and people don't want AMC theaters to go away. The investors don't want it to go away. The studios shouldn't want it to go away because it's one of the biggest places to show off their art.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like we shouldn't want that to happen. And if they say that they're going under, then we should be relaxing on some of our policies. We should be changing some of the way we make deals so that we can keep them alive for our own good.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of what this article was getting to, was them just basically not bluffing, but saying, hey, unless you all start throwing some money our way and making films again and sending them to it, like, we're going to go out of business.
See, so what happens
and that's
if
not
they
in
do
your
that?
interest.
And what happens if they do? I mean, like, if AMC is done, if they can't sustain, say all these theaters open back up by mid-July, they're back up operating, but they can't sustain it. I mean, what happens? Does AMC completely go under? Do they go away for good?
Well, I'd be sad because I love that Stubbs membership.
Yeah.
True.
But
Yeah.
hopefully, I mean, I still believe that if AMC were to go under, just like Hostess did, somebody would buy it and still. I'm just saying,
There wasn't a day that Twinkies weren't on the shelf.
Yeah,
Everybody's,
exactly.
we're never going to be able to get Twinkies
But
again.
somebody bought that
Twinkies
property.
were there.
Yeah, they bought
Yeah.
that property up and kept on going. And I really think somebody would buy AMC up
Yeah.
and keep on going. And if not, if somebody didn't buy AMC as whole, then all these other theater chains would just start picking and choosing
Right.
which theaters they wanted.
Yeah.
So, like, your local theater, if it's an AMC theater, even if they go under, that theater's probably still going to be there, whether it's AMC or not.
Well,
Now,
what were the other? There were the other chains that went away, but the theaters themselves, that the main chain started
The actual
with,
building is still
stays,
there
yeah.
and in operation, but it's AMC bought some of them, Regal bought some of them, Cinemark bought
And
some
that's
of
what I
them.
think will
our,
happen.
our AMC used to be Showcase. It
That's
was
right.
Showcase 20, and
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
AMC bought that theater. So because Preston used to be Showcase, and I guess I don't know if Showcase went under, but Cinemark bought Preston, and AMC bought the Stony Brook Theater because they were both Showcase cinemas. And now instead of being Showcase, they're different theaters, but the buildings are still theaters.
Well, and I guess that's a bigger question too. Is something like Stubbs A-List, was it a factor in why AMC was doing so poorly financially? Were they just playing it too close to the chest and offering too much savings? Because when it comes down to it, it's like, I mean, movie ticket prices here
Yeah.
in the area were the same across the board at Cinemark and at Showcase and AMC, or with Cinemark is the theater.
Yeah, Cinemark.
So
owns
Cinemark and
Preston,
AMC.
Yeah.
So it's like you had the same ticket prices.
Yeah.
But was it something that where Cinemark obviously doesn't seem to be in the same trouble, or at least they're not talking about it? Same with Regal. And Regal doesn't really compete here in Louisville area. They're in southern Indiana. But is that something where AMC just has is that going to be where when we get back to opening theaters, they're going to have to be a little bit more careful about what services or
See,
things they
we
offer?
talked about that back when MoviePass was a thing.
Yes.
Because
Right.
AMC criticized MoviePass's
Yeah, they said
their
it wasn't
business
gonna
model.
be-
Yeah, they're just like, that's not sustainable
Yeah.
at all. But then yet they come out with their own service, and I can't see them saying that about MoviePass and then coming out with their own service that's just as unsustainable as MoviePass's. To me,
But was it only sustainable for as long as they were in business the
that-
way they
or
were
that-
and
that I
operating
don't
it
know.
the way they
I
were?
kind of feel like it was a smart business decision and a good opportunity to bring in new people to the theater, especially more often,
Yeah.
because they make more money off their concessions than they do off their movie tickets anyway.
Yeah.
So it's a good way to get butts in the seats buying popcorn and Coke. But yeah, they could have been losing a little bit. I mean, I don't think they're losing like MoviePass was losing or Netflix is losing.
No, right.
I think it was.
But I'm just worried, and I'm worried that the service they
I
were
don't think we'll
providing-
get our stubs back if AMC comes back. I don't think
you
we'll
think
get
it'll
it.
be gone?
That's what makes
I
me.
don't either that or it's going to
Oh
be
my gosh.
drastically reduced.
I think that's what makes me most nervous is with them struggling. I really am afraid that when they come back, they'll be like, "Well, we can't really offer like
Right
now, here's
now.
the thing:
3
do they
movies a week." and
do they
this."
just put that on hold?
I
or
think
do-
they change it. I think they are
Yeah.
up
You
front
think they'll
and say
change it?
instead of like 3 movies
Yeah.
a week every week, you can have maybe like one. Like, as long as I could at least get 1 movie a week, I'd be happy.
Yeah.
Now, if
That'd be
they go
fine.
to like Cinemark where it's like you get 1 free movie a month,
Not
I'm
for
like,
$20.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
one movie a week.
I'm like,
because
well-
I can get it for $11 if I just buy the ticket outright. So
That's-
you can't
that's-
charge you $20 a month for one movie
A one movie a week would be fine because $20
Oh,
a month
yeah,
would still
that's
even
right.
out.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that,
that'd
as
be
long as you went
$40.
and saw 3,
Yeah,
you
I'd
know.
say-
Yeah, as long as you saw 3,
Yeah.
then you'd be fine. But if they were like Cinemark, where you only get a free movie a month, I'm like, well, that's not even worth it.
That's
Because
not-
I
yeah.
mean, I'm paying $10
Yeah.
for a ticket anyway.
But what, could they also stagger? Do you think they'll stagger it to where they'll say, hey, this is a reduced deal right now. You continue to support us, but don't worry. In the future, we'll get back up to this.
Well,
Because here's the other thing is, why would I support a subscription model, even if it was the same, or even if they reduced it to one movie a week? What movies are going to be out that I'm going to see one a week?
Sometimes I saw 2 a week, so I believe there'd
But,
still be something.
but that was with normal releases.
Right.
Yeah.
We
We're
already
gonna
know.
be-
well, currently, yeah, we don't know what
we
we're
know,
going to get.
Yeah, we know that the theaters are not going to be chock full with new
I mean,
releases.
if they were open and honest and came out and said, we're struggling, we have to reduce it to this, but we'll give you something on the back end, if it was good enough, whatever they decide, like, you know, some type of like concessions deal or something, I would understand that and be willing, but they'd have to take that step to be like open and honest, which so many businesses are kind of afraid to do anyway. And I mean, there's other ways. I mean, I even mentioned like other ways they could generate money. I mentioned I didn't understand during this whole process the AMC Stubs, they suspended it, but I was like, they have on their AMC Stubs app where you can rent movies, like all like Trolls 2 and all those movies that have come VOD. Like you could actually rent it through AMC, and I was like, well, why didn't they keep Stubs and then say, hey, we'll give you free rentals, like maybe like a free rental a week while the COVID's going on? And I was
If
like,
you continue to pay.
yeah, if you continue to pay the $20 a month, I was like, I would be willing to do that, and maybe it's not enough to save them, but it'd be some income coming in.
Yeah,
True.
Because they do have on their website, when you go to the front page, it says like this week's $3 rental.
Yeah.
Like it tells you what movie that they're showing for $3 a rental, and I would have gladly kept paying the $20 if I could see movies that I can't normally see.
Something tells me there, though, the reason they didn't do that is because why wouldn't they continue that after theaters open back up? And what would keep people from arguing to AMC, hey, you could provide this service when I was in quarantine.
Yeah.
How come you can't provide
It's
this
one
service
thing to
after
show
it's
an
over?
older movie versus showing a new movie.
True. Yeah.
So I mean, that's fine. I'll pay that price to see Ghostbusters or Jaws or some of these older films. But I'm not paying that much to. I want to go to the theater to see Tenet. I don't
Yes.
want to
No,
watch
agreed.
it on my phone
Agreed.
or on my laptop.
But and again,
'Cause
and
there's
I-
no
and I-
app for
and
it
I don't
on
think they're really
Roku.
competing
No.
for that because of the fact that I think most people who are subscribing to we read the numbers just before we hit record on the show, and that's
It's probably around 1 million.
yeah,
it was
a
900,000
million-
in August of last year.
Yeah.
I would
Yeah.
think in a year's time they'd
they've
have
surpassed.
some more.
So even
but in
then,
6 months'
a
time.
million people subscribing to the
Yeah.
service, they're your hardcore fans that are going to the theater often.
Yeah.
Those are not the ones that are looking for the video on demand stuff.
Right.
We enjoy going to the theater. We want to get back to the theater. But I also, if AMC were to go under, one last question is, what does that say about IMAX? They have a deal with IMAX. IMAX is exclusively in AMC theaters. Does that become a problem for if they go under and you have Cinemark who could sweep in and buy some AMC properties, but they don't have a deal with IMAX.
Yeah.
They
Well,
have
it's
their
not
own
just
real
IMAX,
D and
Dolby.
XD.
It's
Dolby.
The only Dolby theaters are AMC
RMC.
theaters.
I mean,
So-
I feel sure IMAX and Dolby would end up striking a deal with some other
Oh, yeah.
theater chain.
Yeah.
But if Cinemark swept in and bought the AMC theater near us and there was no IMAX deal, they would probably convert that IMAX theater into their XD theater, which is better than a regular theater, but not as good as IMAX. So
And that's
it's kinda,
nitpicking,
yeah.
but
Yeah,
for
it
us-
is nitpicking. But
For those who are paying the exclusive
I pay
price-
$20 a month to go see movies. I like that.
We
IMAX.
go see it IMAX as much as possible. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter if it's Trolls.
And honestly, I
or
could even
whatever.
see that being an issue with the Stubbs A-list. I could see
Yeah.
them saying not only one movie a week,
Oh, you
Yeah.
can't do IMAX,
but you can't do IMAX.
because that was one thing I loved. $20. I mean,
Plus an IMAX
an
deal?
IMAX ticket's like
$16,
It's
$18.
between
Yeah.
$16 to $18 anyway. So one IMAX movie almost pays
Paid
for your
for
entire
yours, yeah.
Stubbs membership. And when I would see 2 or 3 a month, I mean that was awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's interesting. Times are tough, and we'll see what happens with AMC. But I don't think they're going under. I honestly, I think like you said with the Twinkie and the hostess situation, I really do think somebody, if it were really dire and they were looking to go under, I almost believe there's no doubt somebody's going to swoop in. Somebody's going to strike a deal and make sure that AMC stays afloat, at least the brand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Management may change and everything, but for the end user, for the people showing up at the theater,
Yeah.
I don't think that'll be the case.
I said management change isn't always bad. Like our AMC
True.
theater is probably the
Well,
dingiest AMC thing because
It's
AMC is
true.
such a big name. When
Yeah.
I walk in there, sometimes I'm like, come on.
Well, we
guys.
know it, and granted, I know I don't know, forget like 16th or 17th in terms of population of city, but
But it's
we
even,
ain't no
it's
Boston.
even in the nicer
Boston's
area. Of
AMC
I know,
theater
but it's
was
still in the
yeah.
nicer
amazing.
end of Louisville. It's like it's even in the nice part of Louisville, and you still can't keep it clean.
True. But I also think too, like you said, yeah, management shakeups are not always a bad thing as long as it's good for the customer.
Consumer.
Yes.
And that may end up being what's
I mean,
proven
I'm sure
here.
it's not nice for the manager that gets fired.
But at the end of the day, if we get the service we like and it ends up being
screw
better,
them other people's jobs as
That's
long
right.
as we're happy.
hell yeah, that's what they're in business for. And obviously, if they're being put out of business because it wasn't run right in the first place, that's what they have to answer to.
Poor management. It shows.
I don't think. I mean, I understand you do have to have some contingencies, but nobody was ready to be closed down for 6 months.
No.
There's not a
No,
business
no,
in
no,
the
no.
world that is
Agreed.
prepared to be shut down as long as we have, which is ridiculous, by the way. But you can't really blame them for their. I mean, they should have been able to stay afloat for a couple of months,
Agreed.
but not half a year.
Yeah.
And that's what we're looking at
I
by,
think you're
by
completely
July or
right.
August.
I think you're completely right. I think you're really starting to see the telltale signs of what this has really done to people and their businesses. Small and large
Yeah.
alike. And I completely agree. It's absolutely ridiculous. And this is what we're now having to deal with in terms of trying to get the economy back up and going. But 3 people here in this room, we're wanting to support it, and we can't wait to get back to the theater. So
Yep.
I'm welcoming it. All right, guys. Are we ready for? Oh man,
What
Our-
are we at?
I think we are. We're ready for that. For
we're ready
that.
for our unique weekly segment.
Ooh.
Are y'all ready? Let's do it.
It's story time, where the podcast members tell their stories.
Story time.
Oh.
It's story time. All
What's
right,
our
guys.
story this week.
I got a story for you. There was an old man, and I tell you right now, this old man, he was serious about getting on some buses, and so what he would do. I don't know. I don't know.
I was waiting. I was
Wow.
like, "Where's it going?"
Serious about getting
we-
on some buses.
This old man, he gets on buses.
No, it
don't
has to
know.
be better than that. I didn't give you enough time.
I didn't.
I'm sorry.
I ended like you did. That was it.
Wow.
This old man gets on some buses.
I'm afraid I don't want to laugh too much. The hiccups will come back.
Yeah.
So no, I
think the laughter would help keep him.
no, it could maybe it helped
Yeah.
them get rid of them, but it could it's like fall down a well, your eyes go cross, get kicked by a mule, they go back to normal.
Right.
Yeah, that's how it works.
But no, it is funny because we have not done that on story time, and I think we've often joked about
Making up a story.
and
I'll
doing
do it.
Not, like
Not right now. No,
Oh.
not right now.
Maybe people want to see that. Would you be in, Sean?
You want to make
I
up a
mean,
story on story time?
I could try.
No, wait. Does it have to be completely improv? Like we can't make it up beforehand because that would be even more interesting. Like you
That's what I'm
yeah,
saying.
like come
No,
in
I'm
and
not going
just-
to do it now.
no, we're not prepared
Okay.
right now.
We're
Sean
not
was getting
prepared.
nervous.
I mean, I'm game.
He's game.
It's
well,
gonna
we already
be a
have
messed up story.
We
I
already
can
have a
tell you that.
topic for story time
Well,
this week.
no, because we'll have to come up with some rules.
Oh.
Like it'll be improv, but it will have to follow certain rules to make sure it's flows or something.
We
We'll
better
talk
wait. We
about.
better wait.
We'll talk about it.
Yeah, yeah.
Pulling out rules. There's
We
no
start
rules
talking
in
about rules,
improv.
and then I'm like, now I'm out. I don't.
Yeah.
I don't want no rules.
We got enough rules here in Kentucky.
Papa Andy's implemented
Tired of all these rules.
I'm tired of it.
So what's the story time?
Story time this week. Well, it happens to focus on hopefully a delightful time in our life.
Huh.
Favorite summertime memories. That's right. We're in summer now. Well, summer break. All the kids are they've been out of school. But no more of that online homework or anything. You're done with school now, and the summer started for the kiddos. And well, heck, I remember some summer times back in the day that even before summer started, and like I think it's the end of June, isn't it? It's like June 20th. It's
20.
Is it the equinox?
Yeah, I think so.
You know, or is
I think it's the 21st.
summer
I could be wrong.
solstice. It's a solstice.
Yeah.
That's right. Because there's a
winter equinox.
winter equinox and wait, what?
Or is it?
Is it the
I don't
fall?
know.
I think it's a fall and the spring equinox. Winter solstice and the summer solstice.
Yeah. Okay.
I think that's right.
This is not like let's. Why? Let's just go to the story.
Well, this is obviously not
We
Sean's
have like
favorite
we have
summer.
a knack for getting off topic.
And we're a bunch of old men.
Jeez.
All right, favorite
I have
summertime
nothing to
memory.
do.
Keith, go.
I have no clue right now.
Oh my god!
I thought you all were gonna go first.
I do have one, but
Yeah, go.
Sean, you go.
Brandon never wants to go.
Yeah, he
first.
never.
I
He
don't.
wants to hear somebody else's, then he can one up us later.
Damn right.
Yeah.
That's
what he
how I
does.
play it.
Honestly, my favorite. I cannot tell you like what year it was. All I know is I was in probably the 5th grade. I'm thinking it would have been around like 91 or 2 maybe. That summer, me and my neighbor, my friend Craig, he was my best friend at the time, like we were always together during summer break.
Yeah.
Like always at one or the other's house, spending the night doing this or that. And I remember like we wanted to build a tree house so bad, but we didn't have any money, we didn't have any wood to build the tree house, and they started building a new subdivision behind the subdivision that we lived in, and we would go every day and wait until the construction crews were done working on the houses. And we had a bicycle with a wagon tied to the back of a radio flyer wagon.
Yes.
And we would tie it and drag it and just wait. And when they left, we would go back in that subdivision and steal all of the scrap wood that was laying around. 2x4s,
Ye little
pieces of
thieves.
plywood. We would load that wagon up and drag that thing home. And that's how we got the wood to build our treehouse.
Heck yeah.
And I remember that same summer, we had the treehouse done. Everything was awesome. Like, it didn't have, like, big walls and windows and a roof and all that kind of stuff, but it was wood. You could climb up the tree, you could get up real high. We had places to sit and all that kind of stuff. We played Army in there. We played Pirates and all kinds of cool stuff. And then we thought, what we really need up here, though, is a
Some
torch.
girls.
We need, like, a torch.
Oh, okay.
To burn at night.
Oh, no.
So the tree happened to have a hollowed out branch that had broken off, and it left a hollow spot. So we thought, what we'll do? We'll dump gas in that
Catch the tree on fire.
from Craig's dad's
yeah.
lawnmower, and we will light that, and it will just burn.
Yeah.
Like a candle.
That makes sense.
Right. So we pour we pour gas in it with a measuring cup that we stole from my house.
Well, you got to do it
A
accurately.
plastic measuring cup, by the way. And we started pouring that in, and it was like, okay, cool, yeah, let's light that. So we light it, and sure enough, it burned.
Yeah.
Like, it didn't explode or nothing. But it was like, oh, well, if we want that to burn for a while, you're going to have to put more gas in there.
Oh, here we go.
So I start pouring gas in, and the flame just follows
The gas?
up into the cup. It's plastic, and it starts to melt. And I drop it, and the whole tree house and the tree up in flames. And we were diving. We had a rope with knots in it that we had climbed the branch and tied so that we could, like, jump and grab the rope and swing, like back
Yeah.
and forth and get down
Yeah.
fast when we were having battles and stuff. And we both hit that rope and just slid.
Did it snap?
Rope burns on our hands. We slid down to get out of that thing, and we watched it burn. And I remember his dad seeing it burn out the kitchen window and coming running outside. And, of course, we scattered like we were gone.
You're getting the hell out of there.
And yeah, so he put it out with a water hose, and we, that was just, it was probably a week before we were allowed to see each other again. But I can remember we worked on that freaking thing all summer.
Oh my gosh!
And,
Just
down
go
in
up
and
one
then
in
burned it
flames.
down one night.
Oh, man.
And it was just like,
I just
there
think
it goes.
I think of you all scattering, your dad standing there, and you all coming up behind him, and it's like Richard and Tommy Boy, and it's like, Richard, what'd you do?
yeah. No, we couldn't blame it on anybody but ourselves.
Did he know?
It was, he found out.
he-
Like, I mean, it was ablaze, He had to put it out. But I just remember us working so hard on that freaking treehouse, and I've never built another treehouse. That was the only one that I ever took time to build.
It's not for fear, though.
Not even for my own kids. No, it was just
was
I
it.
don't know. That was the only one. But it was fun. We worked hard, and we burned it down.
That's a good. That's a summertime memory.
That's a really
Yeah.
good story.
I can't one up
See,
that.
my thing is, I don't have specific, I don't have, a favorite, I don't have a favorite anything.
That's
people
fine. That's
people
fine.
ask me favorite things all the time, and I enjoy life, okay?
I was gonna say, I think the best kind of life you can have is when you just have a string of memories,
But I mean, obviously, anytime we've gone down to the lake for sure, and even
Oh, yeah.
when I was a kid and I went down there with my family, and honestly, I mean, most of my summertime memories are with you. We grew up right across the street from each other. I remember being in your
Funland.
Your tree house, which wasn't really a tree house. It was one of those play sets they built the big house up on stilts, basically.
Yeah.
It's not really in a tree.
It was by a tree.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was actually taller
tree
than the
for
tree.
taller than the tree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
But I remember us we would stay up all night. Like there were nights where we wouldn't even sleep when we spent the night at each other's house, and we would just lay in bed talking about making up stupid stories,
horror strikes.
Yes, and those are the memories I remember. Just making it because I remember no matter whose house we'd be in, our parents would come in at 2 a.m. and be like, "Y'all need to go to bed." Yeah, shut up.
And they would never yell at you.
Yeah.
Or they would never yell at your friend.
No,
They would yell at you, and you knew they meant both of you.
Yeah.
So it was like if I was at Keith's house, I'd be like, Keith, be quiet.
Yeah.
And it was really me making noise. So
Same thing at Brandon's house,
like, Brandon, you know.
Yeah, and I mean, I remember a lot of our love for video games, movies, and stuff came from nights like that because that's what we would do. We'd play video games for a while. We'd watch movies. I mentioned last week when we were at Brian's talking about how that one night your parents rented George of the Jungle, bought
didn't even watch it.
bought Yoo-Hoo and snacks, and we got halfway through that movie, turned it off, and ended up watching Mortal Kombat.
Yeah. I mean,
So-
way better movie.
Yeah.
Mortal Kombat was way better. But
I appreciate George of the Jungle more now. I mean, it's really stupid, but it's funny for being
Brendan
stupid.
Fraser.
But back then, I just didn't really. I guess as a kid, I didn't get the fact that it was supposed to be stupid.
Yeah.
I mean, no, I would agree. Obviously, it's weird because my summertime memories are split into two, and it's kind of like I lived on the old house, on Brackenberry, and that was where we grew up.
Then you lived in my house.
In my house,
That's the name of the street.
It was, or Mihas, as people who couldn't.
That's how it's
say
spelled. Yeah.
But it was like I remembered, it was weird because even when we did move, there were still a lot of times before I was hesitant to get out, and there weren't a lot of kids in my neighborhood. And it wasn't until my parents got me a bike they got me a bike in Christmas time. So obviously it was going to be several months
before you could ride it.
Yeah, before I could even ride it. And I remember that summer, it was right before I think it was either right before my 6th grade year, so right before I was in middle school, or right after my 6th grade year. And I started going over in this one area in this cul-de-sac, and I was just riding my bike around, and then I'd come home, and I actually noticed some friends over there that I rode home with on the bus, but I never really talked to, and that was Logan, and then of course he lived by my other buddies Jeff and Steven and Thomas and
Jeff.
Yeah, Jeff. Yeah, always got to clean his room.
I love Jeff.
But it was I grew up really in two separate types of times because it really sucks because a lot of times I wish you could have come over if you had lived closer by because I
hung out with you.
Oh
when
yeah,
I did.
absolutely.
I said
and
that
especially when we got into high school when we could actually either drive or even before then it was
you
more
mentioning them reminds me of another summertime memory that I loved was bowling.
Bowling.
Because me, you,
Yes.
Logan, and Jeff, we weren't the best team, but we had so much fun.
Yes.
'Cause it was just, each of us are so because Jeff has this really dry like. I don't know how to describe it because Logan can be dry too, but two different types of Jeff.
Yeah,
is
and Logan's a dry you think he is just being very moody, but he's not. He
Jeff
can
reminds
laugh.
me of Stanley from The Office. Not
Yes.
Jeff. I mean Logan reminds me of Stanley from The Office. Jeff is more of the pessimistic, everything's terrible, but I'm gonna make jokes about it anyway. But I loved that, and it was such a weird friendship. But I mean, we had a ball bowling.
Oh yeah, I actually know that. Yeah, you think about it. That summertime bowling on Saturday mornings was. You would think it's the last thing you want to do as a kid when you're, especially in high school, is not sleep in on a Saturday.
Yeah.
And trust me, it still was hard to even get up. But once you were there, it was I'm telling you, man, Dixie Bowl has the best freaking chicken fingers in the world.
All bowling alleys have good food.
Yeah, it is. It's just that fried food they just dump in a freaking fryer.
Yeah, them old ladies
They
at
know.
Dixie Bowl, man, they could fry up some great stuff.
But no, actually, I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
That absolutely. But it's the bowling on Saturdays, and then in summertime it was during the week. It was I'd ride over, and it was from literally I'd have to get done with my chores. That was how I earned my allowance, was actually cleaning the house every day. And I remember that when the summer my parents started giving me money was to clean the house because they knew I was trying to save up for a camera to start shooting movies. And so it was that summer I was not only doing chores, but then I'd get done around 1 or 2 in the afternoon, I'd go over to my buddy Logan's house and we'd play all day. I'd come home, eat dinner, boom, be right back out. And it was from sun up to sundown, you know, and it was like then I'd get home and I'd play, like we would all have a game we were playing, so I'd play it until late at night, till like 2 or 3 in the morning, crash, get up, boom, do it all over again the next day.
You
Rinse and
mentioned
repeat.
your camera, which sparks more memories. But it's like one summer that I can say is definitely one of my favorites. I loved that whole summer and fall going into it was 2010 when we did ITCO.
Yes.
And
yeah,
I don't
yeah.
normally I can't normally remember specific years of things, but I do remember specifically
That one?
2010. Like
Yeah.
I can remember that year, and because I mean there was a lot of just memorable stuff. I mean, as far as ITCO, and I mean Neil was still around back then, and like all this stuff. I'm just saying,
still
it was
around.
Neil,
like-
you're in
I'm
Boston
just saying,
now.
we had like Neil, Logan, me,
Yeah.
you, like Sean at the lake, Jacob. I feel like
Ty.
that was the
Yeah,
year
Aaron,
before. I mean, everybody gets older and kind of goes their separate ways and
Yeah.
stuff. And I'm still in contact with all these people, but I don't see them on a regular
don't-
basis.
yeah, it's not
that was kind
readily
of
available.
that was kind of the last year I think we all saw each other
Agreed.
that much.
Yep.
And then it was after 2010 that people kind of started moving on. And like I said, we're still friends. We still see each other, but
It's
definitely
harder.
not like
It's harder
that.
to try. I mean, you love these people. You make time for them.
Yeah.
But lives are busy, and it's harder to find that time.
You grow
And
up and you have responsibilities, and back then, I mean, all we had to worry about was filming ITCO, and we did have jobs, but it's not the same as having a house payment and a car payment and
Yeah.
taxes.
Yeah, no, true. I mean, you're fighting your parents on curfew,
You were nobody else, just you.
and it was a struggle. I'm telling you right now.
And then here we
Oh.
are, 2020.
Yep.
Had a curfew
You
again.
again.
The only
Grown
time.
ass men, and we had
It's
still
the
have a
only
curfew.
time in my life I ever had a curfew was when Mayor Fisher instituted it.
I'm telling you, I should have been out there preaching and be like, it ain't that bad. It ain't that bad. I've lived with this.
Hey, he retracted it real quick. I bet me and my sister I laughed. I made them all laugh. I was like, yeah. He was like, I implemented a curfew. It failed abysmally, so I'm just going to take it back now. That's basically
Pretty
what it
much.
was.
Pretty much can't contain the people. We're free now. Screw COVID.
Yeah.
All right, guys. I think that's gonna do it for this episode.
Yeah.
All right, that was nice.
Yeah.
So now is the proper time, Keith. Do you want to mention it now? Do you care to? It's right at the bottom of your screen, Keith.
Right here.
Oh,
Right there.
Oh, you tickled it.
Tickle it.
Tickle it.
Is it
Why don't we stop? tickling?
RedMoonProductions.com?
No, dang, that's the website.
Man, RMPodcast at RedMoonProductions.com.
There you go.
There it is.
There it
Sean,
is.
he got it. What about you?
Yeah, RMPodcast at RedMoonProductions.com.
Man, that's
I'm not
all
even going to try to touch it because I'll get it wrong every time. I look like an idiot
I've
touching.
gotten good at it. I know right
What's
where it
funny
is.
is I love that you all don't know what camera I'm on. So
I
you're-
don't.
You're sitting there and you do. You look like idiots because you're just like,
It's like, where is it?
and I'm on the wide shot, so it's like you don't even know.
Nope.
So
But next week, back to our normal time.
back
Tuesday.
to normal. That's right. RMPodcast at RedMoonProductions.com. But next week, 9 p.m.
Tuesday.
Tuesday,
Mhm.
Facebook and YouTube Live. That is correct.
Where we will be reviewing, not the Great Ziegfeld.
Yeah, it is the Great.
Oh, it is the
Ziegfeld.
Great Ziegfeld. Man, got it wrong.
He's
I was
like
gonna say-
reviewing.
I don't know.
I
You
mean,
had to think about it for
you
a
have the
second.
Great Ziegfeld, and then you have the Life of Emile Zola, and I'm like, who does that? Come on, guys, you should have
Yeah.
gave it those are two.
I don't
close.
know.
I don't
Hopefully,
know.
it's a winner.
Yeah.
Hopefully, it's a winner in our book. We'll
We're gonna
find
see.
out.
We're gonna see.
All right, guys. Until next time, I am one of your hosts, Brandon Davidson, alongside our normal new host,
Sean Sebastian.
and
Keith Cheatham.
so until next time, we'll see you right here on the Red Moon Podcast.
Yeah.
We hope you enjoyed this week's episode. For more reviews, previous podcast shows, and everything Red Moon, visit our website, redmoonproductions.com. You can also like us on Facebook or follow us on Twitter by searching for Red Moon Productions, LLC. We'll see you at the movies.